Well, very pleased to have with us new regular Richard Gardner, attorney for Army Sergeant Matthew Corrigan. Richard, thanks so much for coming back on the program tonight.
Glad to do it.
Now, are you representing every member of the military who is running into Washington, D.C.'s gun laws, or just a sizable portion of them?
Just a sizable portion, I guess. There are probably a few others out there that I don't know about.
Yeah, we've been discussing the saga of Lieutenant Augustin Kim with you.
Yes, who, by the way, got his guns back this morning.
He did?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. That is good to hear. And so hopefully we can put that story to rest now. And it's a good thing because now we need to start paying attention to what's going on with Army Sergeant Matthew Corrigan. Emily Miller of the Washington Times writing about what happened to Sergeant Corrigan. Basically, you had a SWAT team show up at his house because he had called a helpline.
Right. What he thought was a helpline turned out to be, it was actually a suicide prevention hotline. And he didn't realize that when he called. He'd been given some bad information about the number, and when he called, they were immediately interested in whether he had any firearms, and he kept telling them that he didn't have any with him, and they insisted that he did, and he told them that he didn't, and finally when they wouldn't put him on with a counselor, which is really what he wanted, he just hung up and went to bed.
Okay.
Thinking that was the end.
But that was not the end.
That was not the end. That was only the beginning.
So he wakes up a few hours later to what? I mean, basically the sound, it sounds like an army's outside his door.
Well, he wakes up to the sound of his name being called out on a bullhorn at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And he woke up and he looked out the window and saw a large number of police officers outside, and then his phone rang. He turned his phone back on because he'd turned it off so he could sleep. Turned it back on, and it rang almost immediately, and it was the police outside wanting him to surrender. So he did. He had no reason not to. Mm-hmm. And he did not realize at the time, he found out later, that the hotline operator had called 911 and said that he had a gun in his lap and that he was going to commit suicide, neither of which was true, neither of which he had told this operator. But that's what she told the police, and they showed up, and it not only was the SWAT team there, but the explosive ordnance disposal team was there, and at least 5 local district police patrol cars had been set up to cordon off the area. They blocked, 2 or 3 blocks worth had been blocked off for any traffic at all, which apparently annoyed some of the neighbors quite a bit, not surprisingly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I got to imagine. So ultimately what happened to Sergeant Corrigan?
Well, he came out. When they asked him to come out, he came right out.
Okay.
As soon as he walked out of it's a basement apartment, he came up the little staircase. He noticed that he saw at least 10 red dots on his chest, and he thought that they might start shooting. So he immediately knelt down in the snow. This was the night of the first of the 2 big snowstorms. He knelt down in the snow and raised his hands, and they came over and zip-tied his hands and then took him to the command post vehicle that they had set up a couple of blocks away and started interrogating him without reading him his rights. He very wisely refused to talk to them. And then they wanted the key to his apartment because when he came out, the door had locked. And he refused to give them the key, said, "I don't want you going in my apartment." And they said, "If you don't give us the key, we're going to break down the door." And that is, in fact, exactly what they did. We're not sure at this point whether they kicked the door down or whether they used a battering ram. But in any case, they broke down the door. Then they sent in a member of the SWAT team to do an initial search and to take his dog out, who was then turned over to animal control. And then they sent in someone from the explosives ordnance disposal team to check in various containers that the first guy had found. And obviously, the only thing they found of an explosive nature were some fireworks some firecrackers or fireworks of some sort that he had left over from the 4th of July from the previous year. And they also, of course, found one rifle and 2 handguns, which he had not registered because he was waiting for the registration process in D.C. to kind of smooth out a bit so that he wouldn't have to go through all the headaches that, of course, Emily has well documented existed up until recently.
Mm-hmm.
And but unfortunately, he had not gotten around to getting them registered because he'd only relatively recently moved into the district. And of course, once all this happened, he eventually moved back out of the district. He lives in Virginia now. But they took him to the Veterans Hospital, and he asked to be admitted to the Veterans Hospital voluntarily because he was really emotionally pretty upset at this point. And he stayed there for 2 or 3 days. The doctors determined there was nothing wrong with him other than the fact that he was having trouble sleeping because of his memories about combat in Iraq, and released him. And as soon as the VA hospital said, "You're fine, you can go," the D.C. police were waiting for him, and they arrested him as soon as he came out of the hospital. And he was ultimately held in the D.C. jail for almost 2 weeks before he finally got released. As we'll find out when Emily does more of the story over the next few days, the major part of the reason that he stayed there so long is they misspelled his name, and they wrote down an incorrect birth date for him, so his family couldn't find him.
He was basically lost in the system.
He was lost in the system because they misspelled his name, and they wrote down the expiration date of his ID card, not his birth date.
Oh my gosh! I mean, talk about a travesty, Richard.
It just a terrible travesty. I mean, the poor man wanted to talk to someone about the fact that he couldn't go to sleep because he was having dreams about his combat experiences in Iraq, and he ends up spending 2 weeks in the D.C. jail and then being prosecuted on 10 counts of violation of the D.C. gun laws for three firearms and 7 counts of possession of ammunition because he had 7 different types of ammunition in his apartment, all of which, of course, was, had he been in Virginia or almost anywhere else in the United States, was perfectly legal. Right. And now he is in Virginia, and he was prosecuted. We filed a motion to suppress the evidence on the grounds that the search was illegal. And in a hearing in April, the judge agreed and said that the search was illegal, and told the D.C. government that they couldn't put on any of the evidence that they seized from his apartment, which of course primarily be the firearms. Mm-hmm. And so the D.C. government now has dropped all the charges. But they will not give the property back. They won't give his firearms back.
They dropped all the charges, but they won't give him his guns back. The guns that were seized in the illegal search.
Correct.
Well, that seems to be problematic, Richard.
It does, and we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to litigate that. They are arguing that firearms in the district are the same things as narcotics, and that therefore they never have to be returned.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's a all right. Legally speaking, do they have any sort of leg to stand on?
I don't think they do. I think that the U.S. Supreme Court in Heller said that firearms are constitutionally protected. So I don't think they can be both constitutionally protected and contraband at the same time. But I think we're going to end up litigating this probably through the Court of Appeals, and because I don't think D.C. is going to give in.
Wow.
But I don't know. Maybe they'll see the light and do the right thing. But at the moment, their position is that they are treating them as if they were illegal narcotics, and therefore they say we cannot and will not give them back.
Unbelievable. Richard, thank you again, sir, for coming on the program tonight, and I have a feeling we'll be speaking to you before long.
Okay, my pleasure.
Richard Gardner, attorney for Army Sergeant Matthew Corrigan, and Lieutenant Augustine Kim joining us here tonight on Cam and Company.